Hey guys, welcome back to a new video. My name is Allison and I am just now filming my top books for 2020. I went ahead and picked out 12 books that I thought were my favorites for the year, and they are in order of most liked. And I went with 12 instead of the typical, people normally do like top 10, and I was like, well, I'm like the rule breaker, so I'm just gonna do a top 12. And they are not assigned specific months. I just grabbed 12 of my top favorite books from 2020, and I really don't want to like jabber too much, so I'm going to go ahead and just get started. So my number one book for 2020 was Dark Age by Pierce Brown. This book was an emotional roller coaster from you know where. This book was intense. It hurt me. It broke my heart. It was so good. I loved it so much, even though it was awful and frustrating, and the ending was so depressing, and I don't know. Apparently, I really like reading books that just are awful. Not awful as in the writing is bad, but awful as in they just make my heart hurt really bad. Anyways, number one book of 2020 was Dark Age. My number two book was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Another book that has really heavy themes in it. It was hard-hitting. It has a fantasy aspect to it. It is an adult novel, and I absolutely loved the heck out of this book. I am really impatiently waiting for the next book to get released, so I don't know if it even has a publication date, but I really hope it's 2021. Fingers crossed it's 2021, because I really want to read it. I'm probably going to reread this at some point because it was just that good. I loved it so much, and I just need to read it again and feel all of the feels again. Because why not, right? Why not? My number three book is Winterwood by Shea Ernshaw, and I also loved this book. It is a YA fantasy type book. It's like paranormal, I guess, because there's like witches and stuff, and it is set in modern times. But I did read her The Wicked Deep, and that one was okay, but I really liked Winterwood. This one has been by far my favorite of hers, and I don't know. It was a short book. It was a cute book. I don't know. I really liked it. It really intrigued me for some reason. I can't even tell you why I liked it. I just really liked it. That's all I have to say, okay? My number four book is No Surprise, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas, and I really liked this book. I gave it 5 stars because it was literally the perfect book to read when I read it. I read it in March, like when it released, and it was so good. It was perfect to read right then. It was the perfect escape. I was like on the edge of my seat the entire time because what the heck was even happening? I could not figure out what was going on. It was so good. I just really liked this book a lot. Number 5 on my list, also not surprising, is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas. And this book was a reread for me. I reread it for the 3rd time this year, and I cried like a freaking baby at the end because super duper emotional, even though I've already read it 3 times. Like, what the heck? Thank you very much. So, yes, number 5 book for me. This one probably could have been higher up on the list, but I figured since it was the 3rd time I had reread it, I should let other books also have the privilege of being in the top 5 of my favorite books. So, this was number 5. Number 6 book on my list was The City of Brass, and I will have to pop up a picture of the beautiful UK cover right here because I don't have it. It's okay though. I'm not at all mad about it. We're not mad. Not mad. Number 7 was The Raven and the Dove by Caitlin Davis, and this one also took me by surprise. I ended up getting it on NetGalley, and I'm not the biggest like advocate for indie books, so if you're an indie author and you're on my channel, please don't ask me to read your book because I don't have time to read books for review. At least not very many of them. I'm very picky with what books I read for review because I just don't have time, and I also don't want to be that reader that starts reading your book and then ends up not liking it and DNFing it. So indie authors, please don't request me to read your book because I'm gonna have to tell you no, and I don't want to tell you no. So just don't ask me, okay? Okay. Glad that's all cleared up. So anyways, I requested this on NetGalley and I managed to get a copy of it, and I absolutely love it. The story just, I was fully immersed in the world and the characters. I really like the main character, which is rare for me. Normally it takes me a very long time to warm up to the main characters, but the main character in this book was very open and funny and engaging, and I immediately like adored her. I was like, oh, she's so cute. I just want to hug her. I wish she was real so I could give her a hug. That's how I felt about the main character in this book, and that is really rare for me to connect with the main character that quickly, which is probably why I like this book so much. And then of course there's also the brooding male interest here. A book is not complete without a broody male. That's just how I feel about it. You can hate me all you like, but a book is not complete without a broody male. It just has to happen. So this was book number 7. Book number 8 is another book I don't have a copy of, and it's called Faraway Bird. It is by an indie author, and I also managed to get this copy from NetGalley, and I have not bought a physical copy of it yet, and I don't know why, because it was really, really good. It was a historical fiction set in like a long time ago, like really long, like millennia, thousands of years ago. That's how far in the past it was set, and it was about a girl who she ended up becoming some emperor's wife or something like that, and she was like, you know, from the bottom of the social ladder, and she worked her way up to becoming some emperor's wife in the Byzantine Empire. I don't know. Like I said, it's set a really long time ago, but it is about actual people that lived. So it's a historical fiction, as in most of the story is, you know, kind of made up, like the circumstances and stuff are kind of made up, but the actual people that the story is about were real, like they existed. So that was really good. I will put a picture of it up here and also link it in the description box so you can check it out if you like. I loved it. I thought the writing was excellent. The plot was excellent. The characters were great. I just really, really enjoyed it. It was just a book that I really resonated with and really liked. So that was number 8. Number 9 was Serpent and Dove. And this book had me laughing out loud all the time. Like almost every single page I was laughing out loud because Reed is freaking hilarious. So take a boy who was raised in a really religious situation, and like swearing makes him blush. So freaking funny. So hilarious. And then you put in a character who basically is like a heathen. Like she wasn't raised religiously or anything, so she's a lot more free and has less like filters and stuff. So they end up together, and it's so funny. Like every time she just says stuff just to make Reed blush because she thinks it's funny, and I think it's hilarious too. I really, really, really like this book. It was so funny. It took me a really long time to read it, so I like rated it like 4 stars, but it was a very high 4 stars. But if I would have read it in like the 3 days it probably would have taken me to actually read it, if I would have made myself read, I probably would have rated it 5 stars because it was so funny. It was so good. This was a really good book. Really enjoyed that one. Number 10 on my list is Godsgrave. So about this series, I really, 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 really enjoyed Godsgrave. I thought this book was the best out of the trilogy, and I loved the story and the plot, and I loved everything about it. I even liked the main character, which was weird because I hated her in the first book and the third book, but I liked her in this one. I don't really know why. There were a couple of parts that I skimmed because I just didn't want to read them. But I ended up rating this one like a high 4-star rating, I think. I know I didn't tell you any of the ratings I gave any of the other books, but that's because it's not important. But this one was my favorite one out of the Nevernight trilogy. I have really, like, this book made me laugh, and it was just really good. The first book was alright. It was mostly a shock factor for me, and then the third book I absolutely didn't like at all. So I don't know. I really like this one. This one was my favorite. Number 11 on my list is Escaping 11, and I just finished this one a few days ago. It was my last read of 2020, and this is a YA dystopian novel, and I really liked it. So I kind of like missed out on the whole dystopian genre thing. Like, I've never read The Hunger Games, I've never read Divergent. Like, the most dystopian I got was the Ugly series, and that was out when I was in middle school, I think. So I have not read a lot of dystopian stuff. Stuff that I've read recently this year that I didn't care for was The Savage Song by V.E. Schwab, and then the other one I tried reading was Scythe by Neal Shusterman, and I didn't care for either one of those, but this one was really good. Like, this one had likable characters. The plot was not super fast, but it was pretty fast paced. I don't know. I feel like it was good timing for me to read this book. I really enjoyed it, and I liked the main character. I liked the story. I liked the reasoning behind where the plot was going. That I understood. Another thing that I like about it is that it opens up it's like another gateway to the dystopian genre for a new generation of readers. So this book doesn't have anything even remotely new adult in it. It is an actual YA book, so I wouldn't be afraid to let any younger reader, not like younger, but like, I don't know, a 12-year-old could probably read it and it would be fine. And I'm speaking as a mom. I have 2 boys, and if I would let my 12-year-old read it, I have really strict rules for what they are allowed to see and to read and stuff. So if I would let my 12-year-old read it, then it's a pretty safe book for anyone. I can't say anything about the sequel. I mean, that's not out yet, but from the way the relationship was progressing in this book, the second one might not be okay for, under 13 or whatever, because it was kind of heading towards that, like, maybe that's a little bit too much range, at least for me. So, I think this is a solid YA book. The writing is good, the plot's great, the pacing is good, the characters are good. I can't really say anything bad about this book, so I really enjoyed this one. And then book number 12 is Kingdom of Souls by Rena Barron. This book had been sitting on my shelf since the beginning of 2020, and I finally read it in November or October. I think it was November, because I think it was around Thanksgiving I was reading it, and this book was freaking awesome. I really liked it, and I can't wait for the sequel. So this book took me completely by surprise, and I have read a few, not a lot, I've read a few African mythology based fantasy books. Another one that I have read that is pretty well known is Children of Blood and Bone, and I didn't like that series. I read the first 2 books, and I'm not gonna finish it because the second book drove me nuts. I hated it so much, but this book was very good. I really liked this one. I really liked the characters, I liked the plot, and then I really liked how the author revealed important plot lines. It wasn't like super shock and awe, it was just like, oh, so that's where that was going. Okay, that makes sense. Like, I understood what was happening. Like, sometimes authors will like be leading you somewhere, and then they're just like, bam, and it's like completely different from what you were expecting. You're like, wait, how did we get from here to here? Like, it just doesn't work out. But the plot lines in this book, like, it's pretty guessable, but at the same time I was like, oh, that makes sense, that fits, that works. So I really enjoyed this book. I'm really looking forward to the sequel, and yeah, that's my last book. So I've talked for a little bit. I've talked for a lot. It's alright. So that was my top 12 books of 2020, and there were other books that I also enjoyed. I just picked these ones as being the most memorable. Like, I just sat in front of my shelf and I was like, okay, which books that I read this year stand out to me? And these are the 12 that stood out to me the most. So I'd love to know what your guys' top books were for 2020. If you don't have 12, you could just give me 5, or you could just give me your favorite. That's alright. yeah, let me know in the comments what your favorite books of 2020 were. I'd love to hear, and I want to just say thanks for hanging out with me and listening to me ramble yet again about books, and I will see you guys in another video. Bye!